We're going to get started with our dinner program now, and I would like to take this opportunity to say again to everyone, thank you so much for helping us. This conference is going so well so far. I want to acknowledge my colleague from the University of San Diego Law School, Lisette Herrera. Lisette has helped me make this dinner happen on their campus. She's been an extraordinary resource for this conference. So I'd like to welcome her up, and then she will introduce the Dean.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lisette Herrera Castellanos. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Service and Diversity here at USD School of Law. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our campus this evening. Obviously, we have a really diverse group of people here. I've talked to people from New York, Philadelphia. Somebody back there was from Portland. She obviously brought the weather with her this morning, but San Diego we recouped quite well, so you can see this is what it looks like for the most part. This evening, I am privileged with the task of introducing our law school's deans. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Stephen Perullo.
Thank you, Lisette. I've been the dean for 9 months, and I got to tell you, the greatest thing about being dean is getting to work with people like Lisette. It's really terrific. It is really a privilege to have you all here, because I think there's one other thing that you need to know about me. You know as well as anybody, I've just had an opportunity to sit with one group of people, you know as well as anybody that diversity is not just the obvious diversity of ethnic and racial minorities. But there are all kinds of diversity. Diversity is made up of all kinds of differences in socioeconomic background and income levels. And find over and over again with alumni, they reach out. They've been successful in law, they reach out to the community, and they return to the community by supporting other students in their endeavors. You all exemplify that motto. You have learned, you have earned, you're now returning in your efforts to increase diversity and bring diverse people and diverse viewpoints to law schools. And I think what you are doing is terrific. You are critical. It's God's work, and God bless you for doing it, and thank you for being here.
Dean Perullo, thank you so much for those words of welcome, and thank you to Lisette and the Dean for having us here tonight. It's an immense pleasure for me to be able to introduce you to one of our featured speakers tonight, Kevin LaChapelle. He's a sought-after speaker and workshop coordinator, workshop facilitator here in San Diego, and an adjunct professor at various universities. He's the founder of Power Mentor, which is one of our exemplary mentoring programs in San Diego that helps young people find their path to higher education where they might not have found it without the help of a community organization like this. Now, Kevin himself, when he was in school, he struggled. He suffered from ADHD, and at some point he stopped trying. He was a police officer. He started working in this powerful organization, and we'll hear much more about it tonight. And one of his mentees in the organization said to him, "Why don't you go back to school? Why don't you finish? Look where you've brought me. I'm in law school. Why don't you finish?" And Kevin did. He went back to school. He finished his bachelor's. He went on to do a master's, and he's currently working on his PhD. And I like to tell this story. I love this story because for me it really exemplifies the spirit of Kevin LaChapelle. He's powerful in his own right. He's humble. He walks the walk. Kevin LaChapelle.
It's very emotional for me when I see these videos, because I see these young people and I know what they've been through and I know where they're at now. Very, very powerful. First, I want to thank USD for, is this a beautiful place or what? This is an amazing place, and thank you, Marion. Has she done a great job? It's an incredible privilege, so thank you so much. I do want to tell you that it is a privilege, though, to stand before you this evening, mostly because of what you all represent in your positions. And the fact that you are specifically focused on removing barriers for people, for students. Removing barriers for them. Over the past decade, I've had an incredible opportunity to walk alongside of some fascinating individuals that most people would see as someone that would not make it in life. Not only did I see them succeed, but I got to watch them and learn from them to see how did they do it. I want to share a few stories of some of these individuals. In 1998, while driving through a local drive-through restaurant at a Jack in the Box, I was met by 17-year-old Jose Orozco, who was working at the drive-through. While waiting for my order, I simply asked Jose this question while I was waiting for the food. Are you planning on going to college? He told me that he had dropped out and that he would just work, and that was his plan. He then went on to share with me that his mother died when he was 8 years old of cancer. His dad died when he was 12. So how do you engage a person that you've never met? You're in a drive-thru. What can you say to them? For Jose, I asked him, when you were little, what did you want to be? He said, I thought I was going to be an attorney. Jose was different. Jose told me I'm going to go do my GED. He did. He said, I'm going to enroll in junior college. He did. I'm going to enroll in San Diego State University. Double major, philosophy and political science. And guess what? He did. And then he graduated. At his graduation, it was amazing. We both shed tears because we reflected back on that Jack in the Box drive-thru where many young people find a dead end working in fast food restaurants thinking that that is all that they can actually do. There was one problem with Jose. He wanted to go to law school, but he did not have papers. He was undocumented. This was a huge challenge for Jose. Fortunately, we kept fighting on and looking for opportunities, and we actually were able to get him a certificate of citizenship, but it was not easy, and it took years. Interestingly, right before he graduated San Diego State University, he got that certificate of citizenship, which he knew he needed to do the background to get into law school. When he gets his certificate of citizenship, for many people it doesn't seem like a major thing. For him, he was able to get a driver's license and a passport. Now he could drive without the fear of having his car towed. And he could go to Mexico to visit his grandmother, who was getting more and more ill as she aged. So as you heard, Jose asked me one time, why aren't you going to college if you're pushing all of us to go to college? And I told him my story of ADHD and that school was too hard and he was not going to buy it. And he challenged me and he encouraged me. And here when I was mentoring him, he actually was mentoring me. So while he was going to San Diego State and I earned my bachelor's, and when he was in law school, I earned my master's. And now with another individual I'll tell you about who's been going to Cal Western and just graduated recently, we're walking alongside doing our homework and while I'm doing my doctorate. One of the points I want to make with Jose is imagine the passion that he will have after these life experiences. Imagine his ability to advocate for others as an attorney. All this started from a quick trip through a drive-through restaurant by simply asking a question. Are you going to college? For me, college is the catalyst to transform lives. I'll tell you about another young man, 20-year-old Anthony Corona. Hard at work at Einstein Bagel in La Jolla. While I was standing in line with a colleague of mine, the colleague pointed out Anthony and said, look what a hard worker he is. We should recruit him for the hospital, because my day job is in a hospital. I agreed and said, okay. Me not being too shy, I asked him when we approached the register, gave him my card and said if he was interested in a job in a hospital, to give me a call, let me know. Many weeks went by, never heard from Anthony. Finally one day I got a call from Anthony. So he calls and says, I want to change my life. He's right over here. So we meet at Starbucks, my favorite place, and he began sharing with me. He had graduated high school. He went and enrolled in City College, where he's been going there for, I think, about a year and a half, maybe. And guess what? Now he has a desire to go to law school. And he's anxious to start San Diego State and continue into a degree in law. And just imagine the passion that he might have, understanding that instead of working on case closures, it's more important for the attorney to understand the unintended consequences. Young kid, 15-year-old Eller, start talking about, I wonder if I became an attorney, maybe I could help be an advocate for the people of Karen that are being killed. So imagine if this young man were to go to a law school and they invest in him and teach him international human rights law like never before. What powerful impact can this young man have after all that he's experienced? I remember one night, just a few weeks ago, listening to them recount one of the kids whose grandfather was beheaded in front of the entire family. Things that you and I, most of us, have never ever seen. And these young kids have seen that kind of stuff. Lastly, in 2003, I would have the pleasure to have my paths cross with Augustine Pena when he was the victim of a local trade school scam. These are the trade schools that kind of suck young people in and make them think that it's something that it's not. And he got involved with Channel 10 News, and they exposed this school and helped many of the unsuspecting students recover funds that they were being charged with in their federal student loans. But one thing about Augustine that he's going to share with you in just a minute. You know, they say the true measure of a person is not so much how a person is when everything's going well. It's how is a person when things are going really bad. And I don't mean really bad. I mean so bad that you wonder how you can get up each morning and even move forward in your life. In 2007, Augustine was attending San Diego State University. And he gets a phone call, and he's going to share with you, or I get a phone call from him telling me something that just happened to his family that was just unbelievable. And I remember thinking, what impact is this going to have on Augustine? Here's a smart individual that wants to go to law school. He was in his last year, or second to last year at San Diego State. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen? Most people would have thought that he would have withdrawn, but he didn't. He continued on, he did great things, but he was touched deeply by the criminal justice system because of what he endured. He would soon be so passionate that he would have a desire to be a prosecutor. But Augustine wants to be a different kind of a prosecutor. A prosecutor that doesn't seek prosecution, but seeks justice. And there is a difference. There is a difference. He's done internships at the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. And I've seen that flame continue to ignite. So imagine the impact that he can have in a district attorney's office based on the experiences and the deep wounds from community violence that his family experienced. Imagine his compassion for families and his ability to seek justice and balance, not just prosecution. Can you see that vision that would come from him? Again, while Augustine labored in his law school, he walked alongside me and continues to help and encourage me so that I don't give up in my last year for my doctoral studies. So I want to leave you with, imagine these opportunities of finding young men and women. These are just a few stories. You all have stories of your own, I'm sure. But the bottom line is we have to give them encouragement, and we have to believe in them more than they believe in themselves. And when we do that, when we seek out these young people and you bring them into your law schools, you will find your law schools come alive. with excitement because of real life experiences that many people have never come across. Jose and I inspired Augustine to get into law. Augustine and Jose inspired Anthony to take an interest in the law. Jose, Augustine, and Anthony then inspire his friend Manny to take an interest in the law, and collectively everyone then goes to young Eller and influence him in having a desire to explore the law. Do you see how amazing these things are? Yet all of this lies in every community across this country. And when we find these stories, we have to share these stories. We have to shout them from the mountaintops, because most people have never experienced these things, let alone ever have heard someone share what they've experienced firsthand. So how can your law school partner with community-based organizations similar to Power Mentor? There's many other great organizations in your areas. How can you reach deep into communities? Joint partnerships, special projects, relationships. And this all will result in seamless pipelines into your law school. Building a support system, collaboratively, for these people to become lawyers, and in the outcome they graduate law school, and imagine the impact that they will have on their communities. And now I want you to hear firsthand from Augustine Pena. He's in very high spirits tonight because he graduated this past Monday from California Western School of Law. So let's congratulate him and welcome Augustine to the podium.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here before you all tonight. When I was asked to speak, I became overjoyed at the opportunity to share a story. A story about triumphs and hardships. A story about dreams and nightmares. A story about goals and accomplishing them in even the darkest of times. See, my story began here in San Diego, and although our family frequently moved a lot while I was growing up, my ties would be the closest with the City Heights community, because that's where some of the most significant events in my life took place. City Heights is a unique community. Its median household income is a little over $19,000. Its median family size is about 5, and they have over 65,000 residents, many of which are from Vietnamese, Korean, Ethiopian, Somalian, and Mexican descent. This community is no stranger to hardships, and to be quite honest, my family was no different. In fact, times were so tough growing up that we had to move in with another family inside of a 2-bedroom apartment. I remember cramming our family, a family of 5, into 1 bedroom and the second family next door. Meanwhile, I was starting high school, and to be honest, at that time, I wasn't very academically motivated. But you see, I didn't see the point in obtaining a higher education because I focused on what I saw around me at that time. And what I saw around me were short order cooks, construction workers, gardeners, gangs, drugs, violence, people coming in or going in and coming out of prison, and so forth. Since my life, my vision, my perspective was limited to that one block upon which I grew up on, anything beyond that street was meaningless. I couldn't relate to academic success because I didn't know anybody who had achieved it, so I did not seek it. I could not relate to continue my education beyond high school, so I did not pursue it. This mindset would clearly result in behavior that ultimately got me suspended from high school and almost prohibited me from graduating high school. After I learned about the sobering fact that I would likely not graduate, I immediately realized the gravity of my situation and made some significant changes in my studies. I eventually graduated on time, and not soon thereafter did I meet Kevin and Jose. And this was during one of the most pivotal junctions in my life. I began seeking answers to questions that I never thought I'd be asking. And I turned to them, something clicked, and I asked them, hey, wouldn't it be kind of cool if I became a paralegal? To which Jose responded, yeah, it's not a bad idea, but why not go all the way to law school? I mean, you like the law, don't you? I said, yes. I smiled, however, and then I turned back to them expecting the three of us to burst out laughing at the idea that this kid who barely made it out of high school now wants to go to law school. But they didn't. They weren't amused at all. As a matter of fact, when I turned to them, they had the most serious expressions on their faces. I knew that they were not joking. I kept that conversation in the back of my head for years to come. And although I would take the necessary steps to get into law school, the LSAT and so forth, applications, it always remained a fantasy for me. And it was always the fact that the location that I grew up at, or where I grew up, we didn't go to the same state. You see, I attended San Diego State. A lot of my friends went to Donovan State. That's one of the local prisons. While I was obtaining my education at SDSU, a lot of my friends became property of the DOC. So to be quite honest, the thought of law school was a very distant and almost impossible reality. But I persevered nonetheless. I began at the community college level. I eventually transferred to a four-year university, and I obtained a pretty decent job. Things were looking up. I was working at the local juvenile detention facility as a teacher, and my life was running relatively smoothly. At least that was the case until summer of 2007, when my world was flipped completely upside down. See, I went to sleep one Sunday evening, not more than 3 hours before I received a phone call in the middle of the night. I answered my phone to hear someone on the other line. I couldn't tell who it was. I couldn't tell who it was because all there was coming through were screams, a frantic voice, and I couldn't even understand what they were saying, to be honest. After this person gathered enough composure to finally tell me what the news was, I realized it was my mom, and clearly I knew something was wrong. I had never heard her, or anyone for that matter, cry with such despair. After a few moments, she told me that my brother had been shot. I was in complete shock and disbelief. I was lying in bed still when she told me. And I remember thinking to myself, this doesn't happen to us. You know, we're a decent family. We're trying to make a decent living, and we're good people. This happens to other people on the news, on TV, and so forth, but not us. It was really surreal. After a few moments of lying in bed, I got up and I went to the hospital. The staff couldn't let me in past the lobby because, well, the waiting room was full of friends and family, and I was forced to wait outside in the lobby. I had called Kevin at that time as well, kind of to brief him and let him know what had happened, because Kevin and I had done so much community work that I felt he should be one of the people to know about what happened with my family. So I'm pacing back and forth. I'm in the lobby for what seems to be hours, and then I get a phone call. I reach into my pocket, I get my phone out, and it's a blocked number, so I immediately know that's my mom. Before answering, I take a deep breath, and I think to myself, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna take him home, you know, he's gonna recover, we're gonna move on, and, you know, years from now, this will just be another story. After a few moments of silence, she barely uttered a few words, and she said that they couldn't save him. When I got the news, I almost fell to the floor. I begged and pleaded with her. I said, no, no, please no, this can't be true. As if she could somehow change the circumstances. But she couldn't. Nobody could. My 14-year-old brother was dead. That week would be a complete blur for me. I vaguely remember having to organize the viewing, purchasing of caskets, contacting the DA's Victim Witness Program, setting aside a location, a burial time, purchasing his burial attire, doing all this because I didn't want my family to have to go through it, so I took it on myself, all while getting ready for a new semester at San Diego State the following week. One of the most significant realizations that I had after this event was just how violence affects a family, but not only a family, an entire community. To address this, we organized several rallies around the county in which we had hundreds in attendance in support of not only my brother, but other lost children. But also after witnessing this injustice done to the community and being a victim of this myself, this serves to solidify my path to justice. See, something inside of me would not let me stand idly by and let people go through so much pain. It was at this point that I can say law school went from a fantasy to a mission. I eventually made the dean's list at San Diego State and graduated on time despite what had happened. And I began attending California Western School of Law. Up to that point, my life had been much, much different from other law students. I came from a background in which you were lucky to even obtain a high school education, and I had already lost a sibling. So my experience in law school was unique. While many of my law school classmates were learning about concepts at school, I witnessed a lot of it during my brother's trial. While we discussed criminal procedure and evidence at school, I would go to trials and I would watch it come alive before me. It was very surreal. Even at times, I would have to finish an exam and rush down to court to one of the hearings. And I would witness some of the same issues that I was just tested on moments before come alive before my eyes. I even addressed two of the defendants responsible for my brother's demise. Another task that not too many law students can say that they've done. But ultimately, from all these experiences, they're what drive me to be an advocate. They're what drive me to being an agent for change. And my message is that there's a wealth of potential advocates in the most neglected parts of our community. I am living proof of that. By increasing the diversity in the law, we're tapping into these passions, which are driven by experiences, and they're guaranteed intrinsic motivators. Kids just need someone to believe in them and help them understand that the world is much larger than to what they're exposed to every single day, day in and day out. Some of these kids have overcome insurmountable odds, and the experience that is gained cannot be taught in a lecture hall, but will certainly contribute to the passion with which they will advocate. Before I conclude here tonight, I'd just like to leave you all with one last thought. And it's about diversity, particularly in the law. It's not just a suggestion, it's a solution that will bring a wide variety of perspectives to the courtroom and allow lives to be changed, but also allow our legal system to grow. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to share my experiences with you. It has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
There's nothing that I can say to add to the message, the powerful message that Kevin and Augustine brought us, and the powerful message of hope that Anthony brings to us for the future of the law, the potential of the law, the untapped jewels in our community that can transform the law for all of us. And I hope that you feel as inspired as I do to just search, because there are so many people in all of our communities who are doing this work and bringing young people along and doing this this incredibly healing and saving activity in our communities. And I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us as law school to find those people and connect with them and work with them, collaborate with them to transform our legal communities wherever we are. So I thank you so much, Kevin, for working with us at California Western School of Law to be a part of what Augustine said is not a suggestion but a solution for the law. I thank you, Augustine, and I congratulate you on your accomplishments so far, and I hope you know that we will never let you go and that we have your back.